large screen. We are good to go.
Yeah, that's fine. So let's start it. Good morning, good night, good evening from all over the world. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for coming in this special session, because this is the five and last session from PMO officer webinars, the magic of the PMO. We are trying to invite the best people for me, the best professionals around the globe about PMO. Really, I'm a follower from today. Our guest from USA, Bill Doe. For me, one of the best. Maybe because he's my friend, I consider him my friend in our profession. And for me, he's one of the best. So, Bill, thank you very much for coming again. This is your house. Always will be most welcome, and absolutely all people is going to share. And thank you much for coming again. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah. Want me to kick her off and go?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much, Leonardo, for allowing me to come and allow me to present. You should be able to see the screen okay, and I'm really excited. This is brand new material. I have never released this before, and so I'm really, really excited about presenting it. I've done it on behalf of Leonardo because he had asked me to come speak and kind of give best practices and what do working PMO directors do, and how do you grow and how do you move your PMO forward. So let's get into this. I'm really excited about it. Who am I? What's my background, right? 30 plus years of hands-on experience in the project management industry. Over the last 20 years, I've been running PMOs, ran 10 PMOs across 4 different companies. My largest PMO to date, University of Washington, I ran 8 PMOs at Microsoft. 8 PMOs across different areas. I was there for 14 years. So a lot of PMOs at Microsoft in different areas. Ran some at AT&T Wireless and Singular Wireless here in the USA. I've been a speaker around the world. I've written 6 books so far. Got more and more coming. And recognized as a PMO and project management expert around the world. So really, really thrilled to be here and thrilled to present. So lots of background, lots of passion in this space. All right, so let's look at the PMO. So again, over the last 20 years, AT&T was a directive PMO. And so in the business intelligence or the data warehousing space in IT, and then a second larger PMO, another directive PMO, much larger, had managers working for me, so it was much more complicated. And then 7 at Microsoft from 2005 to 2018, and then 2019 to 2019, sorry, and then University of Washington. So the one thing I do know is PMOs of all shapes, of all sizes, from directive PMOs to supportive PMOs to enterprise PMOs across multiple industries as well. So excited about that. So here is our topic. So these are the 3 topics we're going to cover today. We're going to go over PMO maturity. We're going to go over process improvements. And then we're going to go and we're going to make it real and talk about really how do you actually implement this. Okay, so the question for you all, right? And I've got the chat button or the chat box up. So the question is how do you mature your PMO? It's really a great question. It's an interesting topic. So that's my first question for you is how do you mature your PMO? Wait. So let's do this. Let's jump into the chat box, right? And talk about how you mature the capabilities of your organization. So fire up your chat box. And so the question in the chat box will be is who is responsible for maturing that PMO? Okay. So who is responsible? Is it the PMO director? Is it the PMO manager? Is it everyone's responsibility? So fire it up. Let's go on to chat and say in the chat box, type what are the roles that are responsible for maturing your PMO? Okay, and I've got the chat box up. I can see it exactly. And so let's look at the results. Everyone, okay, from Henry, yep. Director and everyone. Okay, thanks, Holly. Others? Who is responsible for maturing your PMO? Okay, just a couple people so far. So everyone in the director, okay. All right, so I got another question for you. Again, this is a little audience participation. Who has a PMO process improvement project or program? So who actually has a program in their PMO? Just a yes or no in the chat box. Who's got a process improvement program in their PMO? No. Okay. Thanks, Susanna. No. Okay. Thank you. And who thinks you need one? So if you don't have one, who thinks you need one? If you do have one, that's great. But who thinks you need one? And then the question, of course, would be, if you said no, then how do you drive consistency and rigor in how you run your projects? How do you do that? So if you said you don't have one, then what are you doing about consistency and rigor on how you run your projects or programs or portfolios? But we'll just keep it to projects. And again, jump into the chat box for that. Projects are inconsistent. Yeah. We see that lots. Processes and templates. Okay. Awesome. Okay. And again, I'll watch the chat. I won't respond to everything right away because I've got lots of material to go over. But again, what I want to do today is I want to introduce to you the concepts around a PMO process improvement program. Okay. You guys excited? Ready to go? I'm thrilled to present this material. So let's do it. Wait. Where do we start? Like, if we're going to implement a process improvement project, where do we start? Well, some of you alluded to that. The first thing you must do is you must set a standard that everyone in the PMO is responsible for maturing that PMO. Okay? I know. I asked that question earlier. I just wanted to see where you guys were at. But it is not just the PMO leadership, right? It's not just the leaders of the PMO. It has to be the whole organization. Okay? But wait, the project managers are busy, right? And they're far too busy to mature their PMO, right? And so we hear that. We hear they're really, really busy. They're working on active projects. They're working on multiple projects. So they're far too busy to mature this PMO, right? And I hear that all the time, right? So the question is, what are they working on, right? Okay, if they're far too busy, what are they working on? So here's how I've broken down what project managers, program managers, portfolio, let's not worry about the title per se, but the people in your organization, project management, administrative and time off, and other duties as required. So these are the three buckets. These are the three areas that you would break down what an individual in your organization is working on. Project, portfolio, program, right? Number one. Admin, time off. So sick days, vacation days, jury duty, whatever the case may be. And then other duties are required. Does that make sense? Does that feel right? So the question is that for your organization, does that feel like, would you change it? Would you add additional categories? Or directionally, does that feel right? And again, in the chats, it's just fine. So project management, admin, and other duties as required. And anyone that's running an organization that's got people working for them, such as a PMO, you know you're going to have admin and time off, you know, vacation, sick days, that type of thing, marriages, all that kind of stuff that goes on. So there's that category, project management, and then other duties as required. Would anyone change that? Henry, would you change that at all? or Susanna? Okay. Yeah. Customer utilization. Okay. But that probably could be in the project management space. But yeah, that's fair. But let's agree that these are the three directionally, right? Directionally, these are the three categories to which you'd put your people. Make sense? Development part of admin. Yes, it would be. Yes. Development would be part of admin. Business analysis, OCM, kind of in that project management space, but totally agree with that too, Carl. Okay, so the question is, where do we insert PMO maturity or PMO process improvement work? Where do we insert that, and how do we do that when everyone's so busy? Right, so we've got those buckets, and we'd say directionally those are the fair buckets, and we're all good with those buckets. Where do we insert this work, and how do we insert this work? Well, it's kind of easy, actually. Here's how I recommend you do this. This is what I've done across multiple PMOs, across multiple companies. I implement a 5% rule for every individual in the PMO. 5%. The rule is they must spend 5% of their time improving the PMO. Okay, 5%. So all of their time, 5% of that time during a week, they must mature the PMO. So what does that mean? What that means is on a 40-hour work week, I'm just adjusting something here. Okay, on a 40-hour work week, that's 2 hours a week. 2 hours is not a lot of time. Okay, so it's really not, but I get people are busy. But when we think across 40 hours, and I'm just using 40 as a basis, I know some countries are 35 and so on and so on, but just using 40, we're roughly looking at 2 hours a week. Okay, 5% rule. So then what that means is what you would do is to do this formally, you add a line in their performance goals and you rate them every year at the end of the year on what process improvement work they did for their PMO. So if you want to get serious with this and you want to mature your organization, you're going to have to put into their performance goals to then turn around and be able to rate them on it. Does that make sense? Has anyone done that type of thing before? So you all have performance goals, right? Every employee should have performance goals. And then, so what I'm saying is, if you want to get serious and they work in your organization, you add that 5% line of towards process improvement projects. No, everyone doesn't get to make that up. It's a great question, Carl, and I'm going to get to it. Right now, we're just talking about setting the standard of 5% at 2 hours a week, roughly, and putting in the performance goals. We're going to totally nail that question coming up, Carl. That makes sense? So imagine then for a second, just imagine, right, that everyone in the PMO dedicates 5% of their time to the organization. So 2 hours times 10 people in your PMO, that's 20 hours a week, right? 2 hours times 30 people, that's 60 hours a week. Maybe you have a small PMOs, maybe you have 5 people, that's 10 hours a week. Imagine all those minds, imagine the possibilities of you asking and implementing a 5% rule in your organization. What they do, we'll get to. But imagine them spacing that time and really thinking about how they can mature the organization. Okay? So the thing is, though, and what you really want to understand is that time's going to fluctuate. You're not going to get 2 hours every week. You may get 4 hours one week. You may get 1 hour. That's not the point. The point is you want to seed the idea. You want to tell people coming in and tell people part of the organization will be you will dedicate time, 5%, to maturing the PMO. And then once you put in their performance goals that they need to dedicate time to maturing the PMO, you'll be really surprised on how they will actually do this work. Now, if you're at a company that has merit increases, that has stock grants, that has bonuses, all tied to a performance goal, think about the incentive of that, right? Some of these larger software companies and larger IT companies have great bonuses and great merit increases and great stock grants, all tied to performance goal scores. So think how tying those two together. Does that make sense? You can see that kind of that incentive, and you can see from a tactical performance perspective how important that is. Imagine the mountains you would move, right? Imagine how mature and how fast you would mature your PMO when you've got all the brains in your PMO dedicating to maturing. And then also, right, as a PMO leader, how great would that be? That you've got everyone focused on that. And it's only 2 hours a week. And it doesn't mean every week, right? There's going to be peaks and valleys, and we'll certainly cover that. Does that make sense? Okay, so what are they doing? So Carl asked us, what are they doing? Right? Well, this isn't random. You're going to think about them spending 5% on improving standards, improving processes, improving methodology and best practices. And I'm going to give you some more examples. But the PMO process improvement projects, they're defined by your PMO. I can't tell you which ones you would run. You have to define them based on the needs and based on where your PMO is at and the maturity level of your PMO. But directionally, this is what you want to implement. Otherwise, what you're going to get is chaos, right? Otherwise, what you're going to get is only so PMs running around doing their own status reports, doing their own risk and issue management processes. Even worse, all having their own red, yellow, green color definitions, right? Red may mean one thing to me and something else to you and something else to you. Imagine how much chaos that would create, right? Because what we talk about is consistency is the key to running a PMO, right? Consistency is the only way to successfully scale and to run a PMO. So a standard risk management process, a standard issue management process, a standard change control process, right? Just some of the hundreds of examples of the projects you can run under the PMO process improvement umbrella. But it's really that consistency and that scalability that allows you to mature and grow your PMO. It's the only way, in my opinion, that you can mature your organization, right? Now, the one thing you really want to drive to this, and really important key here is the process improvement projects have to be done by the people doing the work. Meaning, if I'm a PMO director and I go implement a change management process, an issue management process, a schedule management process, I could certainly do that. I've been doing this for years, but I'm not actually doing the work. You want the people doing the work. They're going to be more motivated to fix the process and change the process because they're dealing with it every day. So it's really, really important that you get the people that are doing the work to improve the processes because it's going to help them on a day-to-day basis. Does that make sense? So great. Okay. Because it's really, really important that you can't push down these processes when they're the ones that are doing it every day. So that's where the 5% rule comes in. Okay. I got a great story on consistency. So I was running a large project, or sorry, a large PMO, and a large software company. I had about 30 project managers working for me at the time. We were supporting a major division, and I had a really, really tough general manager. Really tough, right? This general manager, we were doing 8 projects for this general manager at this one time. That means 8 status reports, 8 project schedules, 8 steering committee meetings, 8 SharePoint sites, 8 everything once a week. Okay. So again, and he watched every aspect of every one of these projects very, very closely. So imagine for a second, right, in that scenario, that this GM received 8 different status reports, 8 different status meeting agendas, 8 different color definitions, and 8 different formats for your project schedule. It would be chaos. It would be a mess, right? So fire up the chat button again. How successful do you think that would be? One general manager getting 8 different status reports, 8 different risk and issues, 8 color conditions across 8 different project managers. How successful do you guys think that would be? Busy and not, yep. Right? I won't beat the point, but you can imagine where I'm going with this. Not at all, right? Because again, if it's not related, then it's needed. So hold on that point. I'm going to jump on that one. When you think about this, consistency and repeatability is the only way to scale. It's the only way to run a successful organization when they're doing that consistent. And the color conditions is the best example of that. If you've got 8 different project managers that have 8 different conditions of what red means, that's a huge problem. Or even what red and yellow mean, that's a huge problem. You have to drive a single condition to what red means, what yellow means, and of course what green means. You cannot have project managers thinking their own version of red, yellow, and green. It just won't scale that way, right? It just doesn't. Therefore, it's chaos, and therefore what you do need is you need a process improvement program. Okay, so you need that process improvement program to really set up and to drive that consistency and that scalability. And so it's really, really important to keep that consistency and that repeatability. And therefore, I want to keep going on what does the process improvement topic look like, and let's kind of keep going and looking at some actual projects. Okay. All right. So I love this topic, right? I think it's so important, and I think it's missed by a lot of PMO managers. And why is it missed? Because we're so busy running the programs and so busy running the projects that we often don't step back and go, hold on, we need to look at maturing this organization, right? And so it's really, really important from that perspective. Okay. So why is it so missed, right? Let's jump into it. Okay. So I want to ask this question, right? I'm saying that it's missed, and maybe it's not missed. Like maybe we're just knocking it out of the park from that perspective, right? So maybe we should look at that. And so one way of looking at that process improvement project is going to Google. So let's test our friend Google. Okay. So let's ask Google, hey, Google, search project management process improvement projects. Okay. Well, what do you get? You get nothing. Wait, you don't actually get nothing. What you do get is a single article from Brightwork that has something pretty close to what we're talking about. But basically, across the board, it's pretty disappointing. When you type project management office process improvement projects, you get very little to what we're talking about today. But don't trust me. Go Google it, right? Go out there and Google it yourself, plug in that project management process improvement projects and see what you get back, right? And what I'm saying with this is actually this is a good thing, because what happens is low search results means it's an opportunity and basically continue to build the maturity in your PMO. And who doesn't want to have a mature PMO? Everyone's striving for a mature PMO. And by building this process improvement program, you will actually get to that maturity. You'll get there faster than not doing it. Does it make sense? So maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe Google's confused, right? But what do we mean by PMO process improvement projects? Well, here are the things that we're covering. And we gave you that example. 8 different status reports example, 8 different colors, right? So it's important that PMOs have consistent processes in place for project managers to follow through the major components of running a project, right? So it has to be repeatable, has to scale. And so some of these areas that we're seeing here are the ones that you would create the process improvement projects on. Things like standards and processes and tools and training, right? And methodology and governance. So in those particular cases, those are the bigger buckets. What you would do is you'd come up with process improvement projects for what is applicable to your PMO. Does that make sense? So it's really, really important to understand what's going on in your PMO and then figure out where the problem areas are and then build the process improvement projects for that, right? Otherwise, it's going to be chaos and you're going to have people running things the way they want to run things. So Carl asked this earlier, what are some of the key projects? So I knew I had these slides coming up, so I wanted to save it for now. So when we talk about governance, so say your PMOs have governance. So let me just ask you in the chat, do any of your PMOs have governance? You guys have governance? Yes, Henry's got it. Others? Okay. Susanna's got it. Great. Okay. So in the governance process, right, you'd have a project intake process, right? You'd have a scoring process. You would have a priority process. You would have a resource management process, right? Governance tools, governance framework, right? So these are the types of projects, process improvement projects that you would run in the governance component of your PMO. So if you called out governance as a service offering, I got a whole book, a whole scenario on service offerings, but if you've called governance out and you want to mature governance, these are the types of process improvement projects that you would run. So with that list there, does that make sense? And can you think of other governance process projects that you would run to improve your governance portion of your organization? What do you guys think? Is there any project that I had missed there in governance? Are you guys all knocking it out of the park on your intake process? You've got that just nailed in for governance? Or your scoring? Or your priority? Do you guys all knock it out of the park from your project priority process perspective? Okay, so so the question would be is, if you think you need to mature your PMO and do it through process improvement projects from a governance perspective, these are the types of projects. Okay, all right, let's jump to the next one. So in the program and project methodology, you'd have a risk management process, an issue management, a resource management, a decision, a schedule, right? So again, you would a vendor process, an RFP process, a contract process. In your program and project methodology, you would actually have those processes and you would improve those as well. Does that make sense? So it's, again, you're going to want that consistency. You're going to want that ongoing maturity across these areas. And you can just continue to add to this list what's applicable to your PMO. Another area to which you would improve. Okay. And again, these are just directionally based on your PMO and where you're at from a maturity curve. Tools process. Right? So projects, smart sheets, Monday, Jira, Trello, right? There's tons and tons of project management tools. What are all the processes associated to those tools? And then how do we mature those processes? Does that make sense? Because again, you want project managers to be consistently using these tools, and you want to be able to scale it. And when you think about the data that these tools produce, the old garbage in, garbage out scenario, right? You want good data to come in so you can get good data, dashboards, and reports coming out. So I think that's really, really important. When we think about tools, don't just think about you have to have your schedule updated every Friday. You have to have your risk and issue log or, blah, blah, blah. You also want to think about the data that's going into those tools because you want to make decisions and have reporting after those tools as well. So I think that's really important. And again, these are just samples. These are just directionally for you to think about it. You may have a completely different software package on there. I just want you to think about continuing to move that bar. Because remember what we're trying to, or the goal here, right? Remember what we're trying to enforce. 5% of all people in the PMO, they're dedicating their time to process improvement projects. Okay, so tactically, what does that mean? Tactically, that means, hey, Mary, Bob, Sally, Frank, whatever, you go off and you go work the financial management process. You guys go do that one, right? Or, hey, Bob, you and Kath, you go work on the RFP process, right? So you're taking individuals out of the PMO and you're assigning them projects. Does that make sense? Because you're taking a small group of PMO members and they're working on improving the PMO. And then you're taking another small group of PMO members and they're working on improving the PMO. The thing is, though, is you're going to stagger it. And it's all about the when. The key to this whole process is the when. When can people work on these process improvement projects? Because like we said, they're all really, really busy. They're not going to be doing this every week, but you want to be directionally. You want to get them started and you want to keep a little bit of the gas on it, but there's going to be peaks and valleys, right? But staggering people, staggering 3 groups to go off and do it, and then you 2 guys go off and do it, and you go off and do it, right? And it's all about staggering that makes this successful, right? But again, when you have the whole PMO driving and the whole PMO is driving to mature your organization, it's only going to get better, right? It's only going to get better. Does that make sense? Is everyone tracking to that? Does that feel like you can do that or not do that? How often should you review and refine the process? I would say every 6 months, I would look at that process. I would look to see how the staggering is going. I would look to see their capacity of a current project. They're going to be super, super busy at the beginning of a project. They couldn't take a process improvement project, but maybe during the life of the project, they could take one. So, but I just want to level set and make sure that makes sense, because we all get that they're busy. Right? We all get that. But as a PMO leader, a PMO director, you need those brains and those bodies to help you mature your organization. If you sit in your command chair and you only do this by yourself and you try to create an issue management process or a risk management process or all these amazing processes that we have to have, if you do that, and you do that by yourself and you're not using those processes, they won't land. If you've got the 5% rule, you put in their performance goal and you say, hey, you guys have to do this. Again, staggering the time. We know what's more important. Staggering the time, it's just going to help you mature that organization. Okay? Makes sense? Tracking okay? Awesome. I'm seeing some yeses in the chat. Thank you. Okay, so the question is, how do we make this real? Right? And so the third section is making it real, because it's all good theory, Bill. I get it. But how do you actually make it happen? Right? Well, that's a good question. And it is definitely easier said than done. It's not as easy as you think, right? You would want it to be as easy as you think. You want everyone to be passionate about it. You want everyone to be wanting to drive and mature the PMO, right? But they're busy. Even if you have a management layer, right? And so you've got managers and you got people that report to them, those managers are busy, right? But your job is to push the gas. You got to push the gas, but you also got to know when to pull back, right? Because it's very common. I don't think there's a PMO out there where PMO members are not busy. They're all busy. There's no question. They're running countless projects. They're running at a pace like never before. And they're also running multiple projects. So long gone are the days where one individual, unless it's a massive effort, but in the IT world, long gone are the days where you're just working on one project, right? Unless it's a pure agile shop or whatever. But the point is, most project managers have a couple of projects that they're managing right now. So let me ask you a question. All right. And the question is, what's more important? So let's use the chat. What's more important? A company's strategic project or a process improvement project? So help desk project, an HR system, a marketing system, any company strategic project, or a PMO process improvement project. Can you guys guess which one? Strategic. Yeah, Tony, thank you. Donna says strategic. Yes, yes. I get it. You get where I'm going here. It's not a trick question, actually. It's a tricky situation. So it's not a trick question. It's a tricky situation because PMO members are busy and they will always, just like the chat, they will always go to a strategic project. We get that. A corporate project, we get that. A risk management process, improving a risk management process or an issue management process is not more important than a corporate project. We get that. We totally get that. But remember this, right? Remember, we all agreed to this. We all technically agreed to this, but we all kind of agreed to this, that there were 3 buckets, and you could have program or portfolio or project, but we all get to it. Well, it's the other duties that are required. That's where you're going to put this time, right? You're going to actually put that in there. We're literally talking about 2 hours a week, right? That's where the 5% rule goes. Yes, Henry, that's exactly where 5% will go into other duties as required, right? And so if we agree to that, we need to find a spot for the 5%. That's where the other duties are required. But don't despair, right? Don't despair on this, because the question is about not a single person, right? Not a single person. It's about the whole PMO, right? It's not, you're not singling out and saying, Mary, you have to do every process improvement project. It's the whole PMO. And it's not all at the same time. So that's the other key to this. This will stagger out, right? You're going to have peaks and you're going to have valleys. Not all PMO members are going to be busy at all times, right? There are peaks and valleys. As a project has peaks and valleys, initiation, really busy, crazy busy. During the execution, can be busy, but it will peak out, it will valley out a little bit. And then closing is a much more busier as well. But again, it's the staggering. The key to making this work is the staggering, right? I can't stress that enough. It's really, really important to understand. And so you're going to want to have a calendar. You're going to want to have a schedule. You're going to want to know who's working on these, right? And when they're finishing. But you got to press the gas and you got to let up. You got to go fast and you got to let up, right? Because that's the only way. The key to this, though, is you got to keep going, right? The key to this is you implement the 5% rule, you put it in the performance goals, You rate people based on them doing this or not doing this. And that rating could mean really good things at the end of the year or not so good things at the end of the year. Every company's different. Every company's got different merits and stocks and all that goodness, right? But it's really, really important that you got to keep this going. You can't go, yeah, we're going to do process improvements and then forget about it. It's the only way to mature your PMO, right? It's just the only way to keep things going. And so if you're serious about maturing your PMO and you're serious about really growing your organization and moving that dial in your organization, this is going to be the only way to do that, right? Is dedicating all the minds of your PMO to maturing it and having the people that's doing the work. Those are the individuals that build that out. Your management, your leadership team, if they're building out risk and issues and schedules and all these processes that they don't use on a day-to-day basis, it will not go over. It will not land. You can be a world leader in this stuff. And if you suggest a PMO risk management process, they won't listen to you. They have to build it themselves. Trust me, I know. All right. So as we summarize this, right, PMO maturity is the responsibility, right, of the whole PMO, not just the leadership team. I can't stress that enough, right? The sooner you embrace that, the sooner you embrace the 5% rule, the sooner you get people invested in this process, you're going to mature your organization faster, right? There's no question. Process improvement projects are the best way to move this bar forward. The question would be, if you're not doing this, how do you consider to move your bar from level 1 to a level 2? If you think about CMMI and the project management or PMO maturity process, right? How do you move from a 2 to a 3? How do you move from a 1 to a 2? Right? If you're not doing this type of thing, then of course, we would be in that position where you just would stay stale that much longer. Right. And then making it real, it's implementing the 5% rule, right? They're not going to want to do this. Some people will want to do this, right? Some of your PMO members will want to do it, but very few will want to do it. It will look like overhead. It will look like it's not my responsibility. I'm not running this organization. The twist to that, the angle to that is, if you have them build out processes that they're using every day and it makes their life easier, then they'll see the what's in it for me. They'll see the benefit to that, right? And so adding that 5% to the performance goals, adding that as a rating system, that's going to make it real. That's going to put it right into their performance goals. And then you will talk about it on a yearly basis. I would check it every 6 months. I would readjust, I'd retweak. But again, it's an ongoing process improvement program that you would implement to move your data forward. Does that make sense? Awesome. Okay. So what I know a lot of people are like, hey, can I have the slides? Can I have the slides? What I actually do is I actually have these slides in an ebook, and I will paste that into chat. And you guys can grab that ebook, and it's essentially all this same information. So you can go grab that. And then I am going to kick it back to Leonardo here. I do want to thank you very, very much. I really appreciate being able to come talk to this crowd and share best practices and share what I'm dealing with on a regular basis. And I really appreciate it. Leonardo, I'll kick it back to you. About 10 minutes of questions or so.
Awesome, Bill. As usual, we always keep learning. Wonderful session. Awesome. Really, really. I love it because I love this topic about maturity, PMO. I love it. It's very complicated, any organization. And I don't know how many organizations really have identified his PMO maturity level. I don't know. I don't know many of them. No, I don't think so. But
no, it's really important. It's the only way to move that bar, right? Like you don't want to stay stagnant, right? You want to keep maturing. You want to keep moving that bar. And that's the only way you'll grow your organization. You'll grow your people, right? We talked about governance and we talked about, the intake process and the scoring and the prioritization. You need some great minds to sit and let's brainstorm this. How do we mature this? How do we get better at this?
I love that, to involve all people together, because all minds together
Yeah,
is more efficient for
yeah,
thinking about this. And yeah, absolutely, because as you correctly have said, I'm full agree with you, because after one PMO cycle, you can improve your PMO maturity level in your
right.
PMO. So you are keep improving, keep growing, and you are
Yeah,
all together. At the end, the organization, they receive all the benefits because you are
that's right.
continuous delivering value,
Yeah,
and the PMO maturity is a key factor to
yeah.
deliver value.
You think about your services that your PMO offers, you have to look at every service and then figure out how to mature those services, right? Governance, tools, methodology, all that goodness, right? And then how do you mature that? And then who are the bodies working in those areas? Those are the folks that are going to mature it.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. We have the micro open. Okay, here we can follow in social media, no? In linking
Mhm.
your website, a great
Yeah.
website. Hey, I
Yeah.
saw that you are updating all your content. You have several free ebooks. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
There's lots of free ebooks, tons of free ebooks on PMOs and project management. So that link I gave you will just get you to one, but you'll be directionally in the right place, and there's lots and lots of that stuff. So I'm trying to give away as much free. I've been doing this for a long time. I just want to keep, sharing my backgrounds and experiences.
Oh, that's a wonderful material. So 100% recommended for all people, all audience is watching us.
Yeah.
Website to travel. So any questions? We have the micro open for any question of our audience. Many people is saying thank you, obviously.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Alicia, Liz, Alicia Hernandez, Liz Lopez, Cristina Atasian, Tony Tai, Donna Franklin, Henry Miller. Uh, thank you very much, Alicia. Any questions? I know it's very clear, but with this wonderful material, I think it's a very good time to make any question, no? A PMO
Yeah.
leader as below. So feel free, if by chat or by micro.
Yeah.
It's up to you. So no, Bill, one question. Just
Yes.
no, for breaking the ice. Um, what do you recommend for the first step to any organization that they currently haven't a PMO maturity level? Which will
Yeah.
be the first step?
What's the first step? Yeah. So what the first step is, look to see the problem areas in your execution. So easy stuff, right? I always use crawl, walk, run, right? And so what I mean by that is, say, for example, you've got a risk management problem, or you don't have a good solid risk management process. Start there. Start in the execution. Most of your PMOs are direct to PMOs. Most of them are running, multiple projects type of thing. Then look for the easy stuff, because that's going to get everyone going. Yeah, we got a terrible risk management process. Let's get together and let's come up with what we should do. And then let's look at issues. Let's look at schedules. So take the easy ones, the easy bite-sized ones, and mature those processes. But look for pain points in your PMO. And the people doing the work will be the ones that will identify those pain points.
Hmm. Awesome. Very good reflection for all of us.
Yeah.
Tony Tai, thank you. How important is a culture fit for adding new members to the PMO team?
Yeah, Tony, it's a great question. It's a huge, and you should do that in the interview process. You should really try. When I interview, right, I have managers that interview for me, and then I get to do the final interview. And I always start with, if this is just a conversation, like I can ask you a couple project management things, I get that, but I interview for culture fit. I interview for personality. I interview for, hey, will this person be a go-to person if we're really stuck on a project, or how will they work their through difficult project situations? So that's done at the interview process. You can't uncover everything in an interview clearly, but you can uncover a lot. And when you make it more of a conversation than a pure, what do you do about risks? What do you do about issues? What do you do about, right? Instead of those solid kind of PMI kind of questions, you make it a conversation, you make it a culture fit. You can unpack some of that for sure.
Wonderful, wonderful. And yeah, awesome, Tony, Ty, Nino, thank you. Any more questions?
I kind of have one.
Sure, Holly.
So as I said before, my PMO actually doesn't exist. So what I'm trying to do is just what you're saying, create a group of the people who are currently doing project management and do these process improvement projects. Do you have any advice, or do you think that this would work kind of for volunteers? Like, as project managers, we are all very familiar with asking people to do things who don't directly report to you.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Just wondering if you have any advice for that.
Yeah, influence without authority, right, Holly? That's got to be
Absolutely.
a key thing for you, right? So do the project managers report up to you?
They do not.
Okay, so the project managers report up to a functional manager in your org?
Correct.
Okay, have you had that conversation with the functional manager in your org?
Yes,
Okay,
they are aware it's coming.
okay. And so what we find out, so I love change management. I love ProSci. I love all that changing the hearts and minds of people. What we hear and we see data after data and report after report, it's the functional manager, the direct functional manager that can get an individual to do something.
Yeah.
Okay. So a general manager, a vice president, the top person in the world can say, thou shalt go do that. They won't care. But if the functional manager says go do that, they will do that. So your path to success is through that functional manager. And crawl, walk, run. Say the PMs are having a problem with risk management. We pull some of their cycles to nail out a risk management process, because everyone's going to win. Okay. And then the next one. But your path is through the functional manager.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. Any thoughts on pacing ourselves? This is, after all, a process, not a destination. 100%, Henry. That's the staggering idea I was talking about. The staggering is the pacing. The staggering is the peaks and valleys, right? There's no way everyone in the PMO could be always working on process improvement projects at all times. Never going to happen. Politically, you don't even want that to do that. You want to press the gas, let go, press the gas, let go, right? That's where you'll win, and that's where you'll get the most gain in your organization. If you're constantly pushing process improvement projects, it's gonna bite you more than be beneficial to you. So press the gas, let go, press the gas. That makes sense? Awesome. Good questions.
Yeah, very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Do you recognize your process improvements through organizational pain? 100%. That's where you would, right? We have, I'm just saying but we have horrible project schedules, right? No one can understand what's going on in a project, or we have poor communications, or we have whatever the case may be. There's a pain, there's a recognized pain, and therefore you would go after that pain. A lot of times it is around project execution now. Terrible status reports, don't know what's happening in the schedule. So pain drives a lot of that around the execution.
We are on time, but we are
Okay.
open for one last question. No? No more questions. I don't want to take the time because
No, that's okay.
I'm trying to speak with Bill. A few take for your
Thank you.
time. Okay, no,
Thank you.
yeah, that Bill.
Yes.
Okay,
Stop shares. Mhm.
yeah.